Hey everybody, it's Colette Baron-Reid. We're back with Robert Ohotto, the founder and creator of Hollow Compass Astrology. He is an intuitive astrologer, brilliant, brilliant teacher, and one of my dear friends, and I think one of the smartest men I know. So we are continuing our conversation about Mercury retrograde. This time we're talking about Mercury retrograde in Gemini, but we were just talking before we got on camera. So I'm going to share something with you, because today, if you watched the last video about what is Mercury retrograde, and if you haven't, you have to go watch it. You're going to hear Robert and I talk about something called a setup period, where I talked about deconstructing our stories and taking a look at what it is, what the story is that we're going to be working on. I found out that today, well, actually, Robert, why don't you say, so let's talk about this particular Mercury retrograde, and then I'll share my story about what happened today, because I found out today was a day, was important.
It was a day, yeah. So just to recap from the last video for everybody, there are distinct phases to Mercury retrograde. It's not just those 3 weeks when it's going backward. There's actually a setup phase, the retrograde itself, and inside the retrograde, there's a midpoint, which I'll talk about shortly. And then when Mercury stations direct, we call it, there's an integration phase after that for about 3 weeks. So where we are, let me give you the stats of this particular Mercury retrograde in Gemini. Now, the whole retrograde happens inside the archetype and sign of Gemini. It's not cusping into other signs, which can happen, by the way, in some Mercury retrogrades. And when that happens, two energies activate in a story, in an alchemy together. But for now, it's all about Gemini. It's a great way to really ground what a retrograde really is, and also ground what this one is. So the Mercury retrograde enters into its retrograde zone, I call it, or setup phase, this time on May 14th, which happens to be today. And then it will go retrograde, station retrograde. It's like it's slowing down in the sky, and it's going to stop and then appear to go backward. That actually happens on May 29th, 2021. And then we enter the midpoint of the cycle, and that's when Mercury and the sun join up in the sky. That's going to happen on June 10th, 2021, very important. And then we get to the actual end of the retrograde itself, where Mercury will once again slow down and then start to go forward again in the sky. And that's going to happen on June 22nd. Now, from June 22nd until July 7th is the integration phase. That's when you got to take everything that the retrogrades brought up into your awareness and your consciousness, and you got to make those pivots. You got to take those actions. You got to make those decisions that this new information from the retrograde is going to guide you to do. So those are the full stats for now of the actual retrograde cycle.
So here's what's interesting. Oh, first let's tell them what Gemini theme is. And then I'm going to say what happened to me today, not knowing that today, which is, by the way, we're shooting this. Obviously, it's a video that's not live. We're pre-recording it for you. So think about what happened for you on May the 14th, which was a Friday. What did you think about changing anything? What woke you up? What made you rethink something, right? So tell us, what's the actual theme of the Gemini retrograde? And then I want to tell you my story, because it's so good.
Okay. So I'm going to get a little holographic here as I go into these details. What a retrograde does is it activates our psyche. It activates the holographic field for change. And a change that needs to happen so new potential and new evolution can happen in all of our lives, both personally and collectively. It's all interconnected. Now, going back to ancient mythology here, Greek mythology, Hermes, which is Mercury, was the messenger of the gods. So now I want you to image that. Think of the collective energetic field right now, all the patterns activated right now, all the challenges activated right now, all the opportunities activated right now. Get a whole sense of that around you, that you're part of, by the way. And get a sense of your own life in that micro kind of cosm of, okay, there's the macro out there, there's me, and it's all part of one creative journey. Now, Hermes is coming on the scene and saying, listen, I'm in Gemini this time, y'all, and I need you to take a little pause here and do some deep dives into your shadow, into your potential, into the unknown of yourself, of your potential, of your shadow, and consider where maybe, we got to go into Gemini. We got to talk about like some shadow Gemini themes. And shadow doesn't mean negative necessarily.
Right.
Sometimes it's just what you don't know. Sometimes it is like, you got a fire breathing dragon to go hug. But most of the time, it's a little bit of both. Now, Gemini is an archetype that we look at on a surface and we say, oh, it's the twins. It's about, therefore go to the twins. Duality, right? Good and evil. There's a good and evil twin. There's the ugly, pretty twin. There's the you just go through all the dualism that we on the surface would look at Gemini and go, oh, well, that's the Gemini energy. That's the Gemini pattern. But Gemini is also about learning, the student archetype, curiosity. So when we enter into Gemini through those archetypes, we get into this new arena of Gemini's energy, which is about everything that exists between duality. Yeah. Yes, we have hot and cold, but what about lukewarm? What about, just warm? What about medium warm? I mean, you go and now apply that to co-creation, apply that to your psyche. How do you think? Now, we're a culture that has engineered us and patterned us to think in dualistic ways most of the time. We have heaven and hell. We've got, good and bad, good and evil. You just go down all the ways that you maybe see yourself and life. But the deeper truth is that life's not that simplistic. And so Gemini is really concerned with everything that is about the rainbow of creation. And, getting into, hey, there's more than just, dualistic options in this life in terms of our creative journey. Right. And that gives us room to really express and bring forward all of who we are. We're not as simplistic as right, wrong, good, bad. We're all a mix of it all, right? Like one of the terms I like to throw out there is flawsome. You're flawed and awesome. Yeah. So that's a very Geminian way to see oneself. In every astrology sign, it's the pattern of the sign that offers the learning. And Gemini's learning says, listen, come over to my classroom. I'm going to teach you about the rainbow. And when you learn about the rainbow, wow, imagine all the new creative potential and opportunities you can engage in your life. So this retrograde, Colette, it's about, hey, I've got to look and see where I'm not seeing the rainbow. Right. Where am I not seeing, or in your case, I think connected to what you're about ready to tell everybody, I think it's about because it is about education. It's about learning. Gemini is the student archetype. Yeah. I want to learn. And, Gemini pattern will have you reading 3 or 4 books at one time because there's just so much out there to learn and it's so fantastic. And I just want to know it all, right? But what we have to do is we have to look at the shadow side. So for some people in this retrograde, for example, they might have to look at, well, I'm scattered. I do have 3 or 4 books at one time, and I need to simplify to amplify and get into my own space of, hey, I've got to actually focus myself here, or I'm not going to get traction in my bigger goals or in where I really want to go. And they need to pare that down. And that could be one Mercury retrograde message, or it could be, if we go bigger to culture, we have to start seeing each other as rainbows. Yeah. Not just as you're this or that, you're left or right, you're good or bad. How's that working for us? No. And so these themes, Colette, are active. And that's where I dial us into the moment of this astrological retrograde, because astrology is what we live. It's alive. Yeah. This isn't a live tool. This isn't, it's out there in the sky and we're going to look at it through a lens of 2D definitions and superstition. No, this is actually looking at it as co-creators. Like, hey, this cycle doesn't happen at me. It happens for me. And I can engage it and go to new levels of myself in it if I understand the archetypal instruction, the instruction of the pattern. So this is really about us looking at from 2 lenses. There's the outer, which we're part of, that influences our reality. And then there's the inner. And we have to get, and it's very Geminian to say this, a foot in both. It's about both. Both and. It was really funny. So I asked if we were about to enter into that setup phase for this Mercury retrograde in Gemini. And you said it's about education, communication, both and, things like that. Also paring things down. And I woke up today, I have for the past 7 years, I've put out this amazing VIP mastermind, high-level mastermind. I do it once a year for 8 months for people. Anyway, it's supposed to start June 16th this year. And today was the day I woke up and called my VIP concierge, said, I think we need to move it or change it or do something. And I didn't know why. It was all of a sudden this big lightning bolt hit me. And I realized that we're going to look and polish. And now it might still come off during Gemini, June 16th, or we might end up moving it. Because what we're doing right now is we're paring it down, seeing both and what is, where's the rainbow, exactly as you were saying. I'm in shock that we're having this conversation today, because I literally woke up today and said, no, we don't have to do this, but I'm feeling it, that we need to do some more polishing. We need to set it up differently, or maybe move it until the fall. And we had planned this since January. It was so crazy. But I love this because these actually do
they're initiated in us, right? It doesn't
Yes.
come from outside. Nobody called me up and said, "Hey, I think you should change your mind about this." I woke up this way, right? And I
Right.
woke up saying, and it's all on the themes that you talked about,
Right.
and it's also about service, right? So I just thought I would share that. I thought it was fun. So
Yeah. Well, I had the same thing with the podcast I'm launching. I had to delay it as well. It's like, because I knew I needed to go in same exact. Same,
I mean, I may not
mirroring.
delay it, but the fact is that I woke up today and we are looking at it to see what needs to change, what's, looking into it, what
Right.
are the, kind of what's the shadow? Is there any? Do people want the summer off? It was like and it wasn't second guessing. It was like going in there with with the, what do you call it? The magnifying glass to take a look and see, okay, are we
Right.
communicating this correctly? Is this what we want to be doing? It was very wild.
Well, that brings up like what Mercury retrogrades can also do for all of us. Like I just gave you an example for myself where it's
Yeah.
rearranging the timing, and it's doing it for you as well, where you're having to kind of go, wait a minute, that was my timing, right? But what's our timing?
Yeah, and it's about.
Yeah,
I'm
so
asking those questions.
It's really
Is
about
this?
referencing that. Yeah.
I'm asking those questions. Is this the best for the group? Is this the best time for the group? Or do we want to
Right.
wait till the fall? Do they want to just take the summer off? We've all been stuck indoors for a year and a half, right?
Right.
Anyway, it was
Yeah.
just really interesting that it was the date. So let's talk a little bit more about. So we know that a Gemini archetype is communication, it's education, it's the student archetype, it's the person with the 3 books, and deciding which one to read first, knowing that it's both and nothing is black or white, it's both and, it's gray, it's taupe, right? It's charcoal, right? It's all of these different things, and it's bringing our polarities. We're looking at how we think about polarities. Is that
Right.
correct? Is that right? Okay.
So,
So would you say,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
What's that?
Would you say that each sign experiences Mercury retrograde in a different way, or what would each sign need to look at during this Gemini retrograde? Let's say we were talking.
Sure. Yeah. To offer that advice, I have to reframe what sun signs are.
Great,
So when you say
perfect.
sign, that's a sun sign. And I'll do that real quick. And I do want to mention to everybody, you had it hit you right on the marker of May 14th here as we go to the setup phase. But for most of us, what you'll see is from the 14th to the retrograde itself, which is the 29th, is just you'll get an activation of themes.
Yeah.
So I would have everybody just look to your life for an activation of certain themes. So where are you getting synchronicities in your life that show you, hey, I think a lot in black and white. I think a lot in
Yeah.
either or. So I'd ask everybody over the whole retrograde itself, but certainly the next 14 days, depending on when they see this, and through the retrograde, to kind of see if you've got an issue in your life. Maybe it needs both and medicine. Like,
Right.
how could you think about it from a both and place and try that out? But to your point, sun signs. Traditional astrology has framed sun signs inaccurately in my experience. Now, what I'm going to say comes from, as you know, thousands of readings and having actually for myself worked with this tool for 30 years. Yes, I am actually that old. But the thing about a sun sign, and that's what that sun sign is what you would probably find like in a newspaper column, or it's when it's where the sun was in the Western astrological zodiac when you were born.
Right.
So if you were born, July 15th, well, then it was in Cancer.
Yeah.
If you were born August 15th, it was in Leo, and that's what I'm talking about. So everyone's clear on that. Now, we have been taught that what the sun sign is something that you innately are. So I'm a Cancer, so I'm so sensitive, and I just am a little homebody, and that's actually not accurate. What is
Right.
accurate to say is this, and because you're a Cancer, is that the sun sign is a destiny force. It is what you were born to become more like.
Yeah.
It's a pattern that your soul signed up to work with in the fulfillment of your potential this lifetime, in the fulfillment of, the soul contract you forged. So it's a gravitational force of becoming. And you, for the whole of your life, are constantly working with its pattern as the primary way that you move into all you were born to be. That's
Right.
what the sun sign is. So a lot of times people will hear, you're a sun in Virgo, and then they'll go, oh, you're so perfectionist and organized. And that person's looking at you like, I'm certainly perfectionist, but the last thing I am is organized, and that's because that's a developmental journey. It's developmental. The sun is a developmental process of becoming. So what a Mercury retrograde serves to the sun
Right.
is it's a moment. So let's just throw in Gemini. Let's do this. It's taking Gemini and saying, okay, for example, let's use you. It's right here. You're a sun in Cancer. This is a Mercury retrograde in Gemini. So Gemini's looking at you. Mercury's looking at you with a message and saying, look, I got a message for your potential, from your potential for you. And it's, you've got to find some new pivots in your education as and way you educate and the way you work as a teacher.
It's so true.
But wait, why? Because let's get back to what this is all about. We're all interconnected, and your role as a teacher is what? A role of service to us.
Right.
So really it's about, you've got to find a pivot out of your agenda of what you think is supposed to be and where your calendar and your timing. You've got to find a pivot here that serves your student body, because that's where we connect to the holism of it all.
Right.
Like, okay, it's not about me. It's about, I have a role as a teacher, because the Gemini archetype will also recruit the teacher archetype, because they're in a polarity, teacher, student, or polarity. So it becomes that. And then it also might have something to do with, there's some other things personally for you. And I'm reading you a little bit here.
Hey,
I think there's just information that you haven't yet gotten about shifts and cycles ahead for all of us, that you're going to need to make more informed decisions about your educational containers here, and what you're going to do next with your students. And that's why the retrograde is already setting up and saying, take a pause. We got information coming in from the hologram, from Matrix, the field. And now you got to just like kind of wait until that starts to come in more and get out of your own way. Now, Colette, I got to teach about the trickster real quick before you jump into these sun signs, because everyone's going to go through some trickster moment, probably to some degree. And what you're doing is mitigating it already. You're like, I don't want the trickster. I'm listening. I'm flexible enough to change the date. Cool. So remember, everyone, you've got to be on guard for you activating the trickster in your life by not listening.
Right.
Now, Mercury retrograde, how does it serve the sun? And what would it serve every sun sign differently? Absolutely. So your Cancer journey is served in this moment, in this cycle, in the reality of this moment, by, hey, I think I need to review my course curriculum, my timing, what I'm doing, and just maybe time to, you don't even know yet, it's going to be some shifts.
Right.
Now, if you were in Aries, for example, sun in Aries, how would the Mercury retrograde in Gemini serve them? Well, Aries is active. We got to go to the now. What's happening for an Aries right now? Chiron is in Aries, activating them. You've got Pluto and Capricorn activating them. You've got other things that are moving through the Aries development right now. So this Mercury retrograde in Gemini is going, wait a minute. And I've got to have you connect with Chiron is your sense of your journey with the wounded healer. I've got to have you look at how you've maybe split yourself as a spiritual being without a body, or a earthly being without a spirit. We've got to connect you again, and let's get to what the Aries journey is about. It's about, I've got to become someone strong enough to be a pioneer, to be a leader, to be someone who can draw a sword and defend myself and my own individuality. I've got to be someone that can take risks, intuitive risks. This is a very intuitive sign. It's a fire sign. So this retrograde in Gemini is going to offer to an Aries person a way to go, wait a minute, this is what's blocking me from that. I'm not stepping into the role of leadership. Why? Leaders get arrows in their back. I don't want that. And so,
hey, Mark, you listening to this? This is so good.
Arrows in their back. Yeah, that's true. And guess what? They also change the world. It's both and. Are you in? And then it would bring up a conversation with one's victim. Well, I don't know. I have to talk to my victim. Let me get back to you for a minute. So it's like this is how it really works. It starts to dial in toward and focus you and catch your blind sides in what's keeping you from your solar journey of development.
And what about Taurus?
Well, Taurus is going through an incredible time. So when I look at these, the way I look at this is I look at the cycles, the bigger cycles. So Uranus right now is in Taurus, and it is moving through that whole sign over the next years. And it's basically bringing this real call to, and let's talk about, first we got to talk about what the Taurus solar journey is about. And by the way, I'm being very brief because these
so are so good. Are you kidding?
Pages I could offer about each one of these.
But
Taurus
so good.
is about, you've got to learn how to be in your body. You've got to learn how this earthly realm is part of the divine, not some banished place of, and you've got to then start to create values for your life around money, around resources, around the gifts of your own resources, that allow you to live in a holism with it. So if you're someone that doesn't give your soul currency and thinks all healing and intuitive coaching stuff should be free, you're not in the Taurus solar journey very well. You know, you're actually in the starving archetypes of starving healer, starving artist, starving teacher. So Uranus now is waking up people with this Taurus solar journey check this out. This is how holism works. In a time when we're in climate change, we're in all these different challenges, shifting at the bigger level of the collective, which Uranus is about. Mm-hmm. And it's about a need for innovation, a need for revolution, a need for, and personally, you take this in, if you're a sun in Taurus, you're like, okay, this Mercury retrograde in Gemini is going to have me look at my life and go, where do I need to innovate? I need to revolutionize. I need to get out of, yes, the both and that's keeping me from that. I need to get in my body. I need to take care of the earth part of me. You know, I need to be here now. I need to be Buddha under that Bodhi tree. I need to get myself and my mind in alignment to a deeper potential trying to happen. So I think someone with the sun in Taurus also is going through a square from Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius. So you got those four. There's so much activation for Taurians right now that it's really, and I love it because we need the earth caretakers more than ever. We need people that really get down to the basics of this creative dimension and help the animals, help, you know, wherever your calling is, help people reconnect to that level of their holism, and including your own. So if you're a Taurus, I think this Mercury retrograde is going to challenge, I would say, people's finances. It's going to bring up a lot of where you're not in harmony with, hey, why don't we give the soul currency? Why do we split, you know, the healing arts from money? What's that about?
Right.
You know, but we don't say anything about Wall Street. You know, it's like we have to start looking at these shadow sides. And the thing is that where this matters to a person is if you want to have a career in the healing, coaching, intuitive arts, you're out of the gate in trouble because you're not going to know how to put value on yourself and what you give.
Right.
And know that these things deserve financial value as well.
Right. That's a big one. That's a big one for a lot of
blocks.
That's a big one for a lot of healers in general. Yeah. But for the Taurian, you know, understanding their value and their worth, and again, looking at the Gemini archetype for this Mercury retrograde, it is also about how they communicate that to other people then, if that's correct from the way you described it, about looking at their own value.
And for Uranus and Taurus, we're looking at cultural patterns that pattern us.
Right, pattern us, right.
We come from, you know, very Christian, Judeo-Christian type patterns in the United States anyway. And then if we go worldwide, every I'd say place in the world has some influence from patriarchal type religious ideas where the earth is not considered sacred. It's a banished place where we pay off our sins. And it's just language differently. And how does that form your inner sense of value? You know, this is part of God or the divine or whatever you want to call it. This is it too.
So let's look at Gemini now. Let's now look at how Gemini is going to deal with the Gemini Mercury retrograde.
Well, Gemini is going to have, a lot of activation with Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius, trining it. Then you also have Neptune and Pisces offering a square. So Gemini, if you're a Gemini, Sun in Gemini, right now is a very mystical time for you. And I mean, when I say mystical, there's something hardcore I'm communicating. It's not elevating off the planet into love and light. I'm talking about dark nights. I'm talking about, I've got to understand my role in development of becoming more of a Gemini, and my role, and this is one of the archetypes of Gemini I didn't offer yet, but I love this archetype, and it's the archetype of the guide. So that is a Geminian archetype, and it's the person that guides someone to their own shadow, guides someone to their unknown potential, guides someone to their truth. And a guide doesn't tell someone what to do. They offer counsel, they offer sometimes protection, but they offer guidance.
Right.
So there's this sense of, okay, I've got to guide you. And with your Sun in Gemini, I think you've got a lot going on. This is going to bring up for anybody with Sun in Gemini on one level, once again, just one level, how you think about mysticism and God in either or ways.
Oh, I love that.
You don't even know it.
Oh, I love that.
Talk about the shadow. It's what we don't even realize we're doing. So if I were to say to you, it's a little triggerable, but this is a great example. Hey, that murderer is part of God. whoa, if you're either or Gemini and you're privy to like, cast aside who is and isn't of God, that's not going to get in. But that's the thing. Mysticism doesn't follow our human thinking. Right. It's like, no, it's all one. All is one or all isn't one. Which one are you with?
Yeah.
Because there is only one truth here. And you can't make all is one something that's just convenient for you when it serves your ego or serves your wounded ego or serves your ideas of God or the divine. It's got to be a truth that when it gets rough to embrace, that's when you're there too. So that's just, you can dial in from there a lot of different things. And it starts to become about, okay, Geminis are going through I'm going to say a very massive mystical attunement.
Perfect.
And they've been in one for quite some time, for about 10 years already, and it's not done.
But the retrograde is
going... Where are you at in that?
Yeah, but the retrograde, we want to just focus this on the retrograde, not the past 10 years, that during this retrograde, they're going to retrace their steps around this
Where are you at in that?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of room for all of us as individuals to take from that and go, okay, for me, this is where I am. And that's where we look to, once again, the themes that are coming up. And that's just one level. I mean, we don't have time to go through every level for every sign.
No.
We'll be here for hours.
Okay, so we did talk about Cancer early on, but can you just summarize that for the Cancerians who might just be tuning in? Yeah, so what would Cancer...
The Cancer's journey is about becoming more incarnate within the mother energy and archetype, and becoming more empowered in empathy. And also, I've seen most people with Sun in Cancer are doing a lot of work this lifetime on changing family legacies. But it also can be like, for you, I know you because I know your chart, and we've known each other for almost 2 decades now. It's really about being the mother for a community of student body, a student body of students, of people. So the Gemini archetype in this plays a role of, okay, where are you in your either or where are you just not seeing the educational needs of your children?
Right.
Where are you also not taking in all orphans? Where are you just, I'll take that one, but not that one? It's about, how do you move more into the healing of our culture, society, and family energies in a way that Gemini offers. It says, hey, listen, I want you got to go more both and here. Are these all God's children, quote unquote, or not? And if they are, what does that mean for your calling?
And what about Leo? Let's move into Leo now.
All right. Leo. So Leo's in an interesting, wonderful maturation right now. I love this for Leo. Leo is about becoming fully expressed as one's creative sense of self. And there's a need in a Leo solar journey to be out there shining your creative uniqueness to the world. Okay. That's the core of the Leo journey, but it's also got in it the need to become one's own king or queen. You've got to rule yourself, or your creativity will be defined by other people.
Ooh,
now, Saturn in Aquarius and Jupiter in Aquarius are squaring Leos right now for the next, Saturn certainly for the next 2.5 years. What this means, and the Gemini comes in and goes, look, you need to start thinking differently about sovereignty. Are you a sovereign? Who owns you? Why? Who owns your creative energy? Who owns your creative voice? Why? Let's go into the shadow side of your mind, your mental patterns, your mental constructs. I'm Gemini. I'm going to take you there. I'm going to show you how you think about, let's just go to how you even think about being shiny, luminous.
Yeah.
Do you think it's go big or go home, get on the stage, and you got to be the brightest star in the room, otherwise you don't matter? Or do you actually know that, hey, all stars elevate the luminosity of life?
Right.
Where are you? Do you want to shine? Do you shine your light to illumine others, or do you shine it so you can get to some wounded sense of self and heal that? Where are you coming from? So one of the archetypes that's the challenge for Leo is the narcissist. It's one of which, and we all have some morbid narcissism. I never make anyone wrong in these assessments, because it's just, that's not how it works. But we all have some more of that. But the narcissist is the person that can't see their shininess. They never were taught that they were unique or special. So they invert like a black hole and draw light from other people. There's a difference between being on stage to emanate light, and then there's a difference of vampirizing the audience. Where are you at in that? So Gemini comes in and says, listen, I have to help work with your ways of thinking about creativity, visibility. We got to, and it's a retrograde. We got to go back. Did you feel when you were a kid that it wasn't safe to be seen?
Yeah.
And now you walk around invisible, and you wonder why no one sees your needs. You're not you're not visible. They can't see your needs. I mean, there's so much in that. But I love for Leo, what this offers is a chance to really, in a way, grow up. Like, you've got to become the ideal parents to yourself so you can creatively thrive.
Oh, I love that.
You didn't have.
So let's move on to Virgo now.
Virgo, similar to Gemini, has been in a period of mystical attunement for quite some time. So there's, it is in Virgo, we find the healer archetype, we find the designer, we find the person that's a technician or that's good with systems. And I think that this Gemini energy coming in is saying, okay, we've got to huddle up here and we got to look at where you're not integrative enough. Right. Where are you stuck in either or? Were you stuck in black or white? And it's not allowing you to understand the holism of systems in your life, the holism of your destiny. Your destiny is a system. Everything's really in the end a system in a way. And so it's about a need to detox, and maybe one could say purge, but not from a resistance place of get it out of me, get rid of it. It's more take it in and integrate and give it love and let it neutralize out kind of a thing. So I think Virgo in this journey is going to, whenever there's a cycle like this, it's, your perfectionist is going to get activated. You're going to see where you control versus trust. You're going to see where you're not really being in the neutrality of being a technician and that the need for that for the healing. So I think that Virgos are going to be offered a new level of healing, but this does involve an assessment of the shadow crevices of the mind itself and how it operates.
That's cool. Okay, Libra is next.
Libra is a journey of becoming a lover, becoming someone who also, you can't be a lover unless you know your value. If you're on the hunt for value in your relationships, you're not really in the lover archetype. You're not in that sense of, I love because it's my nature. It's I love because I expect this back. I expect you to, give me value back. And so Gemini is going to come in and go, okay, we're doing an inventory of how you communicate. We're going to look at your love style. We're going to look at whether that serves your loving. We've got to look at where you are not seeing yourself as equal to people. The journey of Libra is to see oneself as having the same value as other people. And then when we know our value, we can go out and have these beautiful relationships. And we can mirror people, we can counsel, we can, and so in this Gemini journey, I think it is about kind of I feel this being more about going into our programming on a socio-cultural level of our ideas of love. Like, hey, how's that working for you? You wonder why you're still single, or you wonder why you're in a marriage where you don't feel like you're communicating well, your needs aren't being met. I'd go to the base of it. Hey, what values create the glue of our intimacy?
Oh, that's great.
People glue together on codependent values, on chasing their value, on, thinking that if I get married, I'll be enough. If I'm single, I'm not enough. I mean, there's a lot in there for Libra, but ultimately it's always about, in this particular case, especially, we've got to deconstruct the ways you think about love, relating, all of it.
I love that. Wow. This is so great. What about Scorpio?
So the Scorpio journey, it's a very misunderstood and maligned sign, I want to say. So, because it's actually very dynamic. It's the journey of alchemy, and in it carries the alchemist archetype. So when you're at this level of Scorpio development, what you're really beginning to do in a lifetime is master how to interact and engage emotional currents of energy and psychic energy in a way that's not just personal. It's me relating to, yes, another person in a love relationship, for example, or a group energy, or yes, a family past. There's sort of this interesting place where Scorpio develops from, that's about being in that psychic soup of culture, family, society, and then going out and trying to have, an emotionally vulnerable relationship with other people that oftentimes recruits sexuality. And that's where the sexuality piece for Scorpio comes in. Now, this Gemini thing is, once again, similar to Libra, but bringing in more of a sexual and emotional tone. It's like, okay, how do I relate in ways that allow me to trust, not control? And then Gemini is saying, yeah, well, you don't trust because you think people are either good or bad. And then you're suspicious. You don't trust what you feel, or you take on the feeling energy of other people and you don't even know what you feel because you're feeling it all. Yeah. What's my field? What's not my field? And I think in this, I'm going to throw in an archetype. I think that Scorpios are going to really be engaging in this retrograde called the love rebel. Now the love rebel says, look, I can love you, feel you too, but I won't feel for you. I'll feel with you. I got to let you have your own feelings because you won't grow if I don't. So I can't go into this romantic idea of feeling for you and healing you by feeling you out, and then you don't grow. No, I'm going to give you your shadow back. And I'm going to do my own little shadow work here. And then we'll mature into and blossom hopefully into this, real conscious intimacy.
That's great.
And so there's an opportunity here to get very conscious about one's intimacy, conscious about one's psychic field and how we blend fields with each other in ways that are beautiful and also really disastrous. Yeah. So it's this both and. I got to figure out where I need my needs to be more blended with someone else. I need to be okay with needing people.
Right.
And yet I need to also take responsibility for where I lose boundary and I just become in the psychic soup. And then, I wonder why I'm controlling. I wonder why I'm codependent. Well, you're not even in your own field. So Scorpio, similar to Leo, has been challenged right now by a Saturn energy with Aquarius and Jupiter to say, look, you've got to become a king or queen here of your own emotional field, of your own emotional half of your psyche. And you've got to start owning this in a different way if you want conscious intimacy. And I'm talking about the intimacy that doesn't defend against vulnerability, but steps right in it full on and says, all right, let's do this.
This is a powerful retrograde. Amazing. Okay, so now let's talk about Sagittarius. We have Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces left.
Yes. So Sagittarius is, Sagittarius is a sign that right now happens to be very activated by many things in its solar journey. So we've got Chiron in Aries activating it, Pluto in Capricorn activating it, Neptune in Pisces, Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius are activating it. There's a lot pushing towards Sagittarius. And I think what Sagittarian journey is about, by the way, is it's about learning to live in alignment with co-creative law. It's about learning to live in alignment with, therefore, with the truths of creation. And so there's a need to kind of coalesce in Sagittarius, some philosophical, symbolic understanding of life, of creation itself, of who you are. And so it is a quest to understand, if you will, in a way, God or the divine, but from a lens of what makes creation happen. You want to kind of understand intuitively the dynamics, and then from there, work with it. Now, the archetype of Sagittarius one of the archetypes I love is the teacher. So there is also, I've got to share and teach this to people. Now, that's one level of its solar journey. It's one thread. Now, this Mercury retrograde in Gemini is coming in and saying, okay, we've got to check out where you're at with your mysticism, where you're at with your, your sense of learning. Because, I think all teachers are always eternal students. You're never done learning. So do you think you're done? Because that's an either or way to think about learning. Do you understand the laws of learning that people, can't just jump from kindergarten to 10th grade? They got a bunch of grades to go through before they get to 10th grade. Are you looking at people like they should be in 10th grade, but they're in kindergarten? Are you telling yourself inconvenient truths about your life? Why not? What are you defending in denial? What are you defending? And so it kind of goes into a bigger scope. I think of an assessment symbolically of things. So I would tell anyone who said Sun in Sagittarius this cycle, step back and get as symbolic as you possibly can. There's a lot going on that you're meant to bring light to in this life right now. You're an important force in the education of the cosmic education of humanity, galactic education here. So Sagittarius is on this journey, I think in this time, in this quantum era of evolution, of really moving into a role of being a galactic teacher. But you can't be a galactic teacher if you don't understand yourself as part of a one world Earth. Like, how can you go anywhere else if you don't land that plane first and go, okay, well, this is the truth of identity for me in this lifetime. So there's a lot going on here. And I really have to say, Colette, in the bigger scope of all of us, and as we get to these other signs, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, we're moving into more collective patterns. That's what these signs are about. If you have a sun in those signs, you're here to actually do something that's transformative for culture.
Right.
It's bigger than you. You get bigger than you in these other signs. Now, Sagittarius is where we start to pivot to that.
Right.
And there's got to be this intuitive grounding and intuitive clarity in truth, which right now is challenging with all sorts of different ways that we are told what's true and what's false and what's fake, what's real. And so this is where you have to really, this retrograde is going to take those Sagittarian suns and say, you got to cut through it, because the karmic consequences of not being aligned to truth are going to be devastating for you. It's not just about, getting polarized. That's the shadow side of Gemini. Into some camp or other, left or right, whatever it is. You've got to be someone who thinks for themselves, intuitively engages life, and lives in intuitive truths. Can you do that? Where are you at with that? So Sagittarius, there's a lot in there.
Wow, that's a lot. So now let's we got to go to Capricorn and how Capricorn can work best with this Mercury retrograde in Gemini.
Yes. So Capricorn has been very activated by Pluto for a long time now, since like 2008, 2009, and it's kind of beginning to wrap down this Pluto activation. If you're Sun in Capricorn, you're on the solar path of becoming someone who is really grounded in Capricorn character.
Yeah.
So you've got to have discipline. You've got to have commitment. You've got to have resiliency, stamina. This is the mountain goat that gets up that mountain, right?
Yeah.
And doesn't sit there and bemoan the mountain for being there, but says, how do I get up? Help me, creative energies of life, climb the mountain, not take the mountain away. Why is this happening to me? There's a mountain in front of me. It's no, I got to get to that summit. That's my soul contract. That's my solar destiny. So Gemini comes in and goes, yeah, you need to start thinking more that way. Where are you? I think this is going to be a big activation in this retrograde for Capricorns. Where are you just completely collapsing in victim consciousness?
Right.
And it's just not useful. That does not get you up the mountain. It's okay to, feel, we all feel victimized from time to time. I have my own victim parties. I do the Stations of the Cross. It's wonderful. But you gotta really at some point go, look, I've got to move forward, because that won't propel potential. Victim consciousness it's part of being alive. There's nothing right or wrong about it. But Gemini is going, look, we've got to get you out of what gets you polarized into I'm a victim instead of I'm a co-creator, and there is fate and destiny. So I think Capricorn's going to be getting a flavor of, also having to look at where they're at with social order, law, social law, and where they need to bring a both and to it.
Right.
Where are you in black or white thinking? It's not, black or white thinking, honestly, is just not useful. That's the message for all the signs. But Capricorn, I think, for its building of that muscle, the Capricorn muscles, really got to do some touring around in their shadow here.
I love that. Aquarius, then Pisces, right? So Aquarius is next.
Well, let me just tell you, Aquarius is having a year and will for the next couple of years, really. Aquarius is going through a deep maturity, and I think it is really, if I'm honest, if you're a Sun in Aquarius, you are one of the most activated energies right now, along with Sagittarius, I would say, because this starts to recruit in the meta cycle of age of Aquarius we're entering into, which is a new co-creative age in which there is a new dominant creative pattern kind of guiding all of Earth in its creative journey. Now, it doesn't mean the other patterns are gone. It's just the one that ascends to the top. So what is Aquarius about? It is about humanity. It is about one world consciousness. And let me be very clear here, Colette, because I think people can hear that wrong these days. Yes. One world consciousness does not mean one world order.
Right.
It means understanding that we are all interconnected. We interbe on this planet.
Right.
And there's so many lessons in that right now. I think that's really the activation of so many of our challenges, is that we don't align to that enough and eventually survive.
Yeah.
So if you're a Sun in Aquarius, you've got this journey, and this is what it takes to get to that more unified way of seeing things. It takes confronting your tribalism, most notably your toxic shadow tribalism. It takes confronting where you get personal and it's not serving the impersonal nature of co-creative law.
Right.
It takes getting into a new way to see. So one of the things I would have everyone as an Aquarius, and this is like a mantra of the Saturn cycle we're in now, is, do you see what I see? Can you see what I see? And what makes you see what you do?
Right.
It's about vision. It's the visionary archetype. Why do we see what we do? What can we and can't we see? And Gemini comes in and goes, you can't see any of this because you're polarized in either or. You're not thinking in holism. You're thinking in terms of black or white, tribal dynamics. And there's a new model of tribalism trying to happen through the Aquarian pattern. And that is this. Hey, before you gave up individuality to be part of tribes, that's what we all have done. That's what we've learned. That's how we survived. Now the Aquarian tribalism pattern says, look, you've got to become the most uniquely expressed individual to save your tribe. Otherwise, we're done. We're not going to evolve further from here, because the co-creative laws are in shift. The axis is shifting to where it's the fully expressed genius of someone that is not tribal, but saves the tribe. It's the ingenuity. It's the innovation of that genius. It's the holism, the one worldness of that genius. So Aquarians have this soul contract mandate of development in this lifetime, where you've got to learn how to shine like a lighthouse. And you've got to understand that light might blind some people, and that can be okay. We're in both and.
Yeah.
People waiting for the world to be ready for their light are going to be waiting a really long time. So, it's like, I'm going to shine because it's my duty. It is part of what drives me. So that's where we get in the Aquarian pattern, people who are whistleblowers, people who are revolutionaries, people who are iconoclasts, because they see enough to know the bigger evolution of all of us and the importance of that for us all to move forward. So Aquarius is got to grow, you've got to own your sovereignty. Yeah. You've got to be willing to say, I'm willing to rule myself. And yes, I'll hold court with people. This isn't about, because what does the sovereign do? The sovereign serves their people.
Right.
It's a service role, actually. Mm-hmm. So Aquarius is lit up, but they got to go through that Gemini shadow to understand where they're not shining the lighthouse, and why not?
Yeah, I love that. And last but not least, let's look at Pisces. And the Mercury retrograde in Gemini and how it impacts Pisces.
Yeah. Well, Pisces as a solar path anyway tends to be challenging for people. So in my readings over the last 2 decades, what I've seen with most people with Sun in Pisces is they're late bloomers. They don't come into a sense of purpose. They feel like they're set adrift most of their life until later, because it takes a certain maturity to engage life mystically. And it takes something that's not offered in psychology or offered in a lot of our formulaic ways of empowering ourselves through the coaching arts or whatever. It takes a whole different way to move in the world through the Pisces consciousness, where you begin to see and feel like a mystic. So for anyone who's been lost on that Piscean sea, I feel you. And there's a little life raft for you, just to let you know that's actually part of the pattern. But with Gemini coming in here, I think for anyone with Sun in Pisces, it is once again about coming into where is my mind ruling and taking control of my co-creative journey in a way that's locking out the mystical capacity in me to thrive and engage this life. Now, what would that look like? It looks like someone who thinks that they have to have it all figured out with their head, that their mind is the most powerful part of what creates their reality, which is actually not exactly true, and that they've got to really let the mystical soul kind of come up and realize that the mind is an important force in our co-creative journey and in our co-creative toolkit, but it's the soul that is the real engine of the train. And what does that mean? Why would we want to put the mind ahead of the real engine? Well, because it makes us feel like we have more control.
Right.
And things can be more controllable. And that's just, and we're in a logos mental culture that wants to always feel like we can inoculate ourselves against uncertainty and the unknown just by thinking it away.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people with Sun in Pisces, what I would just give you counsel in this retrograde is embrace mystical tools.
Right.
And that first looks like, I'm just going to surrender to the unknown.
Yeah.
I'm just going to take this journey out of either or, give up my mind a little bit here and see what happens next.
I love that. It's kind of like leading with curiosity into the unknown. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And realizing, hey, if you really believe you've got guardian angels, you've got a higher or greater power looking over you, this is where it's going to count. So are you going to act like it? Now are you going to get your mind out of the way and actually just let things kind of flow? Because the person that really has that kind of level of faith does that. They just go, look, I give it up to you. You're a greater power than me. Now let's go.
Thank you so much for this really insightful, impactful conversation about how each sign of the zodiac, how each solar developmental journey, each one of us, that's a really cool way of thinking about the sun signs. We'll have another conversation about that another day. But thanks about this particular Mercury retrograde in Gemini. Thank you so much for this insightful conversation. Wow, that was a lot. And I can hardly wait to watch it again. And you guys can find Robert at ohotto.com. So H-O-T-T-O, Ohotto. I call him Ohotty, but nobody should hear me say that. But anyway, ohotto.com. He has a fantastic membership site. I'm actually a member of it, so check him out. It's really cool. And we'll see you again for another really very amazing conversation.
I would love it. Thank you, Colette.
Thank you so much.